The good news is that the sun is shining and we are less than 3 weeks away from Lake Trout fishing opener here in Minnesota. The bad news is that there's still over 2 feet of ice on most of our local area lakes, so we're still a long way from getting out on the water. Since I can't get out fishing, I thought this would be the perfect time to run you through my favorite baits to use in the summer for catching lake trout in canoe country. These are spoons, jigs, and crankbaits. My approach and techniques with each of these baits will change with the fluctuation in water temperatures, but these are my staples and how I fish them in open water. For the full write-up and blog post, please visit chasingfarwater.com. Quick disclaimer before we get started. These are the baits I feel work the best on these Canadian Shield lakes in the Boundary Waters and Quetico on the Minnesota-Canada border. Before you head out onto your local area lake, the first thing you should do is research the forage species on the lake you'll be fishing. I use mostly blue chrome, silver, purple, white, chartreuse, and glow colors because they closely imitate the Cisco or Tullaby, which in our area is the lake trout's main source of food. For access to that information here in Minnesota, I spent a lot of time combing through the Minnesota DNR's Lake Finder data, which not only gives you information on game species found in lakes, but also the main forage species these game species feed on, which can differ greatly from lake to lake. Make sure you do your own research so you can most closely imitate the forage in a lake or match the hatch, as we say in the business. All right, let's jump right in. Number 1 is spoons, hands down for their versatility, visibility in the water, and proven success. Spoons are all designed to imitate a wounded or fleeing baitfish. When a school of baitfish is being chased, they use the flash of their bodies to confuse predators so they can't single out one fish in a giant school. As the predators hunt and wound these baitfish, they will separate from the larger school and be easier to catch. All of these baits are designed to imitate that singled out baitfish and attract predator fish. How to use them? My most successful presentation is a simple straight troll, but I have also found success with spoons in open water, vertical jigging, drift jigging, casting and jigging, and casting from shore. I feel the straight troll is the most effective for fishing new or unfamiliar lakes because it allows you to fish a vast amount of water over varying depths and structure over a short time. Once I've found a pattern or a location where the fish are concentrated, I will switch over to one of the other methods. Early and late in the season, when water surface temps are 60 degrees or colder, I will target shallow water in the 15 to 25 foot range near structure and work my way to deeper water until I start finding consistent depth or structure at which the fish are striking my bait. The first shoreline drop-offs adjacent deep water are terrific locations for spring lake trout. Even if you don't have a depth finder, you can figure out these depths on crystal clear lakes by trolling just outside areas where you can just barely see bottom. Most of these lakes should have 15 to 25 foot of water clarity, so you should be able to see the bottom down to about 15 feet. Troll on the deep water side of these steep breaks, just deep enough where you can't see bottom. Lake trout tend to spend most of their time in deep water near these breaks, waiting for an opportunity to ambush baitfish. This is why I target these areas specifically. These are my favorites. Number 1, the Dr. Spoon. Dr. Spoon is my favorite because of its versatility and its unique shape. Even at a very slow speed, the Dr. Spoon still has a very enticing flutter action, which allows this bait to be fished at any speed. Another bonus feature on the Dr. Spoon is the ability to switch the location of the treble hook from the front to the back, as you can see here, to impart an entirely different action. Basically 2 baits for 1. Pretty much any large, flashy spoon will work to attract lake trout any time of the year. Bonus points for spoons that have a really nice flutter action even when they're trolled or drifted very slowly. I would estimate that 60 to 70% of the lake trout I've caught from a canoe have been with a spoon. If I only had one bait to fish for lake trout year-round, it would definitely be spoons. Another favorite spoon of mine is the Little Cleo. This is the 3/4 ounce size, so smaller profile than the Dr. Spoon, a little bit thicker metal, a little more dense, falls faster, but still catches lake trout. This is the blue chrome hammered or nickel neon blue hammered, and then a simple silver. Nothing beats these little guys. These are fantastic, especially from casting from shore because you can whip them a mile. Number 2, jigs. Jigs are my second favorite lake trout bait. There are a million different types and they all work. All you have to do is find one that you're confident with and stick to it. How to fish them. Just like spoons, I love jigs because they are so versatile. My favorite way to fish are drift jigging, using the wind to determine boat speed, rip jigging aggressively, and slower, more strategic jigging, working over structure by casting and jigging back to the boat. You can utilize this method by bouncing the jig off bottom or very near to find fish holding to structure. They can also be straight trolled, jig suspended over deep water, or casted and retrieved. One of my favorites is the Rapala jigging wrap, or the Rapala snap wrap. While I don't feel this is the most effective bait for catching lake trout, I do feel this method is the most fun and generally singles out the most aggressive fish in the area. Just keep ripping. Let it hit. Rip. Let it hit. There we go. No way. Oh, that's big. Rip jigging causes these finned baits to dart and dodge in erratic directions, which really brings out the killer instinct in these trout. Rip jigging is the most effective if you let the bait crash to the bottom and pause before your next jig, which again imitates that wounded bait fish. You can also rip jig with the bait suspended 4 to 6 feet off bottom if you're finding either the fish aren't feeding on bottom or if you're getting snagged because you're working over a reef or a rock pile. Another favorite of mine are bucktail jigs. VMC, Northland, Berkeley, it don't matter. The key here is to match the colors of the forage species in your lake. The natural hair is incredibly lifelike underwater and does a great job imitating bait fish. If the fish are finicky, slow down your presentation and put a little hunk of sucker or Cisco belly meat on the main hook to get a little bit more attention. Bucktail jigs are also most successful when fished on or near bottom. Swim bait jig heads with paddle tail plastics. Swim baits are great because they can be used to search large areas and varying depths for trout. They sink quickly, have fantastic action underwater, which creates vibration and drives the pursuing fish crazy. And many of these jig heads come with attached spoons or flashers, which I would highly recommend. Again, trout fish by sight. Use that to your advantage with a flashy bait that is both lifelike and can be seen from far away. Number 3, last but not least, is crankbaits. So many options, so many colors, so many actions, so many different diving depths. It's hard to choose. How to fish them. Straight troll, cast and retrieve, cast and rip, or even vertical or rip jigged if you've got a lipless crankbait. Again, they make my list because of their proven fish catching abilities and their incredible versatility. I prefer slender, deep diving, 25 to 35 foot range, walleye, reef runner style baits that are best at imitating the slender profile and size of the Ciscos these lakers feed on, which is generally between 6 and 10 inches. My favorite, no surprise here, is the Rapala Tail Dancer, the 30-foot version in Blue Flash, and the 20-foot version in Purple Descent. My second favorite crankbait, also made by Rapala, is the Deep Down Husky Jerk. I think this is the 20-foot version in Natural Perch and Blue Chrome. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but this one has teeth marks all over it. This has been a walleye, a pike, and a trout killer for me in the Blue Chrome. And the third style of crankbaits that I really like are shad body baits, and there are a million of these. Some of the most popular ones are, of course, the Rapala Shad Wrap, the Rapala DT series. This is the DT16, dives to 16 feet. Berkeley Flicker Shad, Berkeley Deep Diving Flicker Shad, the Strike King XD, and the Norman Shad. I like to use these larger shad body baits later in the season towards fall when the lake trout are chasing those larger baits that have had a whole summer to grow. So those are my 3 favorite baits for lake trout and how I fish them. But before I go, I need to leave you with 3 really important pro tips that are really going to put a lot more fish in the boat for you. Number 1 pro tip, lake trout love to chase. Give them something to chase. I can't emphasize this enough. If you're straight trolling, you need to produce an action with the bait that imitates normal behavior of a bait fish. View your bait through the eyes of a lake trout. If a trout is following your bait and isn't doing anything but swimming in a straight line, it isn't going to look natural. Natural bait fish flee when they sense a predator fish in the area. You need to ensure that your bait is doing the same thing. Alternate speeds, never troll exclusively in a straight line. Pump your rod while trolling or retrieving to impart erratic action on your bait in any way you can, and you'll catch more fish. Always assume there is a trout following your bait that hasn't yet made up its mind as to whether or not it wants to eat. It's your job to convince them. Number 2 pro tip, use inline trolling weights as the water gets warmer later in the season. If you are targeting trout when the water surface temps are above 60 degrees, make sure you bring a few inline trolling weights along with you. This is a 2 ounce inline trolling weight. And this is what they call a keel sinker, which has a keel to help it be more hydrodynamic. 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce. At most, the baits I mentioned are designed to run at a maximum depth of about 30 feet with 150 to 200 feet of line out. As the water warms, lake trout move deeper as they spend almost all of their time in the oxygen-rich, colder water. For a big portion of the summer, mid-June through mid-September here in northern Minnesota, that cold water only exists deeper than 30 feet. These inline weights will allow you to get your baits deeper and catch more fish. Yes, any heavy weight will do the trick, but I've tried them all and I promise you inline weights are by far my favorite because they are most streamlined, which requires the least line out to get down to depth, and they are the least likely to get snagged, so it's going to save you money in lost baits. Number 3 pro tip. Ditch the steel leaders and upgrade to a high-quality, abrasion-resistant fluorocarbon leader. My favorite brand is Seagar, but you certainly don't have to spend that much money to get high-quality fluorocarbon. Berkeley Vanish will work just fine and did for me for years, and a 100-yard spool of any brand should basically be a lifetime supply of leader line when you're using 4 to 6 foot leaders. Since the water I am fishing is incredibly clear, I prefer fluorocarbon for its significantly reduced visibility and its increased abrasion resistance over steel leaders, monofilament, or braided line. My preference for jigging is 14 to 17 pound and 20 to 25 pound for trolling. Since I have upgraded to 25 pound Seagar Blue Label for my trolling rod, I've yet to have a fish break me off. The extra test of the 25 pound line will also allow me to break off tree branches and overturn small rocks when snagged rather than lose my expensive spoons and jigs. This expensive fluorocarbon will easily pay for itself in reduction of lost baits after only a season of use. Conclusion. As long as you stick to one of the 3 major food groups for lake trout, spoons, jigs, and crankbaits, it really doesn't matter which brand you buy. You want to know what I do? I buy whatever's on sale because these suckers are really expensive. They're all designed to catch you fish. You just have to figure out which colors, presentations, and actions work on the lakes you will be fishing. From there, you can decide which ones you like using the most. Identify your confidence baits and start to hone in on a smaller tackle assortment. There is no perfect bait or lure to catch lake trout. Each method will perform differently in different circumstances. I believe if you stick to these basic baits and methods I suggest, you will catch plenty of lake trout on your next canoe country fishing trip. Thanks for watching this video. I really liked putting it together and it's getting me really excited for my fishing opener trip in a couple of weeks. If you appreciate and enjoy this content and learned something today, please like and subscribe. I'll send a lot more of this your way. Thanks.